Cinco de Mayo, May 5th. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Memphis City Council's Budget Committee. Ms. Owens, would you conduct a roll call, please?
Councilwoman Robinson. Councilman Warren. Councilman Carlisle. Councilman Covette. And Councilman Ford is virtual.
As is Councilwoman Logan, I think she's going to.
Yes, and Councilwoman Logan is virtual as well.
Great. And so those who are virtual, let me remind you to please mute your phones. And if you would, if you have a question or want to chime in, if you would text Ms. Owens, we'll recognize you that way.
Good afternoon. The hour is 3:33 p.m.
and Ford
on Cinco de Mayo, May 5th.
And so, colleagues, you should have a revised
City Council
schedule
Budget Committee.
For the remainder of it. Hopefully we won't have to make too many other revisions, but
Councilman Warren,
yesterday, and thank you all for accommodating us yesterday. We had to see the King of Ghana. It really was. Really was.
Councilwoman Logan, I think she's going to.
Yeah.
And so those who are virtual, let me remind you to please mute your phones.
Okay.
And if you would, if you have a question or want to chime in, if you would text Ms. Owens, we'll recognize you that way.
Okay. And so, colleagues, if you notice, you'll see some highlights
Ford
on your schedule. Those are just some revisions.
So colleagues, you should have a revised schedule for the remainder of it. Hopefully we won't have to make too many other revisions.
But today we have IT,
yesterday, and thank you all for
Parks,
accommodating us yesterday.
Public Works,
had to see
Sewer
the King of
Storm,
Ghana.
and then Memphis River Parks Partnership. So
It
hopefully
really
we
was.
can
Really
read through
was.
everything today. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. So at this time, I will recognize Chief McGowan.
Okay. Where's it on?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
There we go. Very good.
So, colleagues, if you notice, you'll see some highlights on your schedules. Those are just some
Take a look at the slide
revisions.
here. You'll see that Wendy Harris
So if we go
is
to
going to
Thursday,
present
May
today. Last time
19th,
she
you'll
spoke with you,
see
she was the
sometimes
interim IT
have been
director. I'd just like
moved
to
up
let you
there.
know that she's been appointed as the
But today
permanent
we have
director of the
IT,
Information
Engineering,
Technology
Parks,
Division. So
Public Works,
wanted to make that
Sewer
announcement
Storm,
publicly.
and then
And
Memphis
we're
River
very happy
Parks
and
Partnership. So
congratulate Wendy on
hopefully
that.
we can
Congratulations.
breeze through everything.
Oh, and her
today.
deputy is ready.
Sorry.
He probably needs no introduction. You probably
Okay.
spent time last
So,
night, perhaps. So
At this
yes.
time, I will recognize Chief McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Floor is yours. Good evening.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
There we go. Very good.
Not yet.
I won't take long. I just wanted to say,
Testing.
first up
Yeah.
is
Okay.
the Information Technology
Good
Division. If you
afternoon.
take a
Thank
look at the
you.
laptops, desktops, and monitors throughout the enterprise this year. The next slide, cybersecurity infrastructure upgrade. There are 5 projects that we're going to focus on under this category: the improvement of the city's email defenses against phishing, malware, and business email compromises. We're going to implement a solution to protect the city's backup system from ransomware and unauthorized access, and also implement a compliance solution for configuration management to track asset device recovery. So there are several projects that go into that, and we can come back and revisit that if you have any questions. The third one is operational infrastructure. So again, it's important that we replace our aging wireless equipment, enhance our wireless coverage. We're going to replace key network switches, and we do that every year. We need to replace some storage in our City of Memphis data center, and also add some DR storage replication and increase our DR capacity. The next project is implementation modernization. And under this category is where we upgrade the enterprise application infrastructure and fund enterprise applications. There are 4 major projects that we will focus on in this area. Enterprise technology assessment. We're going to do a GIS migration and also an service bus for application integration. The last project is our Treasury tax system upgrade for Chief Ford and the finance team. I know she can speak to this, but I'll tell you that it's important that we upgrade this tax billing system. We tried to over the years. This system is 1997, I think, old, and there, of course, is functionality that we must have that's no longer available to us in the current Treasury system that we have. We've worked with a vendor here recently, but they could not provide the real functionality that we need to be successful for our tax billing. And so this request is to implement that system. That's the last slide, but I know how important that it is, that the impact that we have to citizens. And a lot of the work that we do, you don't see and our citizens don't see as well. But I just want to say that we've installed some public wireless access for our public libraries that's available to citizens. We recently increased our internet bandwidth from 1 gig to 5 gigs. That not only benefits city employees, but it also benefits our citizens as they visit libraries and community centers. They experience the same thing that we do as city employees. And of course, from a security standpoint, when they are in our community centers and in our libraries, accessing our public devices, their data is just as secure as ours when we're on our city network. And that is all that I have. So I welcome your questions.
Colleagues, any questions for IT?
Move it.
Second, okay. I have a question, and this may be directed to Chief Ford. This isn't the first time we've talked about Treasury IT system, is it?
No, sir, it is not.
Okay. So can you provide some background history?
I certainly can.
Okay.
I started here in 2014 while we were trying to implement a new Treasury tax system. The issue that we have with the most current vendor that we have done this, the prior attempt to that was aborted. That was the combination of the city and county in a program together. This one, they just simply could not provide the functionality that we needed. And as you know, as we move into more modern with our credit card payments, moving payments out to other areas so that we can make it as easy for our taxpayers to pay their taxes as possible. So we have found a system. We have tested it. They are very excited about it, and it is going to provide the functionality that we need. That also gives us kind of some of the back office programs for issuing our tax bills. Currently, we have to send those out somewhere to get those issued. So we're really excited about this. It is actually, this money will more than cover this implementation, and we hope to have it done within the next 2 years. I will tell you that the server that currently holds the program that runs our our tax collection, which is our largest source of revenue, has been blinking critical. It has gone down twice. We buy parts on eBay because it is so old, it's become proprietary. The company that actually built it just gave it to us and said, here you go. So it is imperative that we move forward on this, and we think we have found the vendor and the right partner that can help us do this.
So how much did we spend on the previous system?
Well, on this past system, we spent $1 million, maybe, right at $1 million on testing, implementation, building it, and it just simply could not work.
So from 14, for some reason, I'm thinking of a larger number. I just don't know what it is. Is this?
No.
Oracle, that may be Oracle.
Yeah, that was Oracle. This is a totally independent system.
No, because Oracle is more so ERP.
Right, back of house.
Right,
Yeah.
but I just thought that specifically for Treasury, that we've looked at something over the years. I got everything in my office, so I'll go find it.
I can tell in our early on, like right after I first came, we were trying to implement and build a system compatible together with the county trustee's office that the vendor just said, sorry, we can't do it.
Okay, yeah, I'll just have to look back through my notes, but I don't think that, and like I said, since 2016, the years began to blend together.
And this is one of those projects that I think, is imperative that we do, and it has been very, very frustrating. And I would not, breach any guidelines given by Chief Singh, but we have had a lot of difficulty with this last vendor in trying to implement this program.
So when you talk about the server, though, so is this the previous system, was there a specific server that this was housed on? And so.
Yeah, so the current system is 1997 server, right? We don't even get updates for that anymore. Okay. It's so old, we can't do anything with it. So all we do is just look after it day after day because it's so old. We cannot, as Chief Ford said, we literally buy parts off eBay because it's not even being manufactured anymore.
Okay, yeah, I'll go back and look at it because I just from 2016, it doesn't seem like this is, like I said, it could be wrong, our first bite at the apple when it comes to Treasury management. I don't call offhand, but okay. And so, but if it's not, though, I just recall that expense being greater than just $1 million. So that's what I'm trying to get at, how much we spent since 2016, specifically dealing with Treasury, and what assurances do we have that this is going to be the solution? Did you want to add something, Councilman Carl?
Well, we'll get to when we get to operate.
Yeah, okay. If there are no questions on this item, motion has been made and seconded to approve the CIP budget requests for information technology. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item passes. Next, we will have engineering.
You guys have that backing up in like the cloud, right?
So we're implementing yes, but it took some time to find the thing.
Welcome, sir. Good evening. The floor is yours.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Don't want to rush.
Manny Belan with the Division of Engineering Director. I do want to introduce a couple of individuals that is with me this afternoon. Randall Tatum is my traffic engineer. We also have Lauren Kennedy with the Executive Director for Urban Art Commission. So with that, we are here to present the FY23 capital budget request for the Division of Engineering. Total project, total cost or total obligation we're looking for is roughly $3.5 million. Within this request, there is a total of 5 projects, 4 of which this body had previously allocated funds towards. One was introduced last year, and we can talk about that as we come to it. So the page number 2 is our first project. It's our Highway Safety Improvement Program project. The project will provide matching funds for the highway safety projects directed by the state. They define this as a program to achieve reduction in traffic fatalities, serious injuries in the public roadways. The ask for that is $150,000. Next project, page 3.
Yes, ma'am. Well, yeah, we're going to ask questions at the end. Okay, gotcha.
Okay. The next project, page 3, is our traffic signal. The request is for $1 million. In FY22, is basically the ask for this year is the same as 22. This is for our traffic signal modernization project. Most of these include upgrades to the traffic signals, safety standards along the intersections and what have you, poles, controllers. Page 4 through 7 is basically just an image of what we actually do. So page 4 is the pre-construction at the intersection of Prescott and Barron. Page 5 kind of shows you what that looks like after the improvement has been done. Page 6, similarly, this is at the intersection of Central and Cooper. Again, this is what it looks like prior, and page 7 is what it looks like now once it's completed. Moving on to page 8 is our traffic calming devices. Again, the ask on this is $1.7 million, same from FY22. And this is one of our, this is where most of the speed hump programs come from. As we go through that, this is the funds that we're asking for the construction of those speed humps. Page 9 is the request for the urban art cover line. This body previously approved and adopted a ordinance to fund art as part of our annual CIP. Historically, the ordinance indicate 1% of the capital budget. However, it has not been fully allocated as such. In FY22, the request was $400,000, but the body reduced it to $350,000. We are coming back to you this year to ask for that $400,000. Page 10 is the last project. As I indicated earlier, this was a project that was introduced in FY22. It's traffic safety development cover line. During the budget last year, one of the council members had asked for an additional $46,000 for special intersection improvements at various schools. Once the budget season ended, there was a revision to the budget to include basically $500,000 for traffic safety development cover that would be allocated towards all districts. So that was for last year was $500,000. This year we're asking for $250,000 for that. And then the last page is our carry forward request, totaling up roughly $770,000. However, $500,000 of that is the traffic safety development cover line that this body had approved last year. but we have never received any requests, particularly in any of those districts, to do any of those improvements. So with that said, that concludes our presentation, and I welcome any questions that you may have.
Okay, we have questions from council persons Robinson, Canale, and Warren. Any on this end?
Thank you. On page 2, we're looking at $150,000 for Federal Highway Administration program. What are we doing with $150,000? Because there's not a whole lot. So what is the program, and what are we trying to accomplish?
Yes, ma'am. So the reason why it's only $150,000 because the Highway Safety Improvement Program is run by the state. So the state will come in, look at a particular location, determine if there is need based on accidents that has been occurring in those locations. Those improvements are borne by the state. Mostly, majority of them is borne by the state. However, there are certain portions of those improvements that will require local match. And for example, they could ask for additional money for, say, a ramp, if there was a ramp that needs to be installed there. So this cover line allows for us to be able to participate towards that program without us having to perform the work ourselves.
Okay. So my question is $150,000 enough money when you're talking about a full year and we're talking about work that's expensive on a highway?
Yes, ma'am. Historically, the $150,000 is what we forecast the need to be for a particular year, and that has been true up to this point.
Okay, that's great. The second question is on page 3. How do our storms impact our budget as it relates to the traffic signals?
That's a great question. As you know, we had the ice storm of this year. One of the things that we tried to incorporate as part of our modernization of our traffic signal includes the ability to supplement power to those traffic signals. So most of our newer traffic signals have the ability to be connected to, say, a generator or what have you, to allow for that to function until such time as MLGW provides the power to those. So when we modernize, we're constantly thinking about ways to be able to have resiliency with our traffic signal. Of course, even with generators, they run out of gas, so you need to be able to replenish those as well. But in the meantime, it buys us time as MLGW conducts their work.
Thank you. And my last question is on traffic calming devices, especially in school districts. Which line item is that? Which page? Or is that a part of your CIP?
Yes.
Page 8. Yeah, so that would be, so our speed hump program is run out of the traffic calming devices project request. Again, the ask for this year is $1.7 million. We have roughly 65 locations currently ready to be funded for construction. So those are just waiting for these funds to be appropriated and approved by this body, and we can proceed with those construction.
Okay. So what you're saying is we don't have any extra money if we want some additional traffic calming devices.
Yeah, unfortunately, the ask that is pretty much, it's part of a construction project already that we have planned. So this 1.7 will cover the speed humps that are currently ready for construction.
Okay. So we're not giving ourselves any wiggle room here.
There's $500,000 in traffic safety development cover line that y'all could.
Okay, that's just all I need to know.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You could just go ahead on Tuesday. On Tuesday, you could go ahead and amend the CIP budget with same 9 minutes with the $500,000 that you get him going today, and then you could increase for FY23 the CIP line item for traffic safety development and make him whole. But there's $500,000 today that you can get appropriated on Tuesday.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it, Councilwoman?
That's
Roberts? Okay, we've been joined by Councilman Canale and Councilwoman Johnson. Councilman Canale.
Thank you, Chairman. Director Boleyn, how much does it cost for each intersection for modernization?
So we have seen, obviously, just like everything else in terms of material costs and labor costs, we have seen an increase drastically in there. So right now we're in about 450 to 500 per intersection is what we're looking at.
All right, colleague, I don't know about you, but I'm a big fan of these modernized intersections. So, Chief Ford, I don't know what the capacity is in increasing the CIP budget, but I plan on making a motion in budget wrap-up to increase that line item so that we can do more. $1 million doesn't get us very far, colleagues. When you're talking about 350 square miles in the city. The 1.7 that you use for traffic calming devices, how long does that last? When is that exhausted? How long has it been gone? How long has that amount been eliminated?
Those are already taken. Basically, we have construction. We got locations that are ready for construction, ready for these funds to be appropriated, and those are pretty much as soon as budget gets approved, we're ready to construct them, and they're ready to go.
Okay.
So it goes back to Ms. Robinson, no wiggle room.
We don't have
Right.
to.
And the HSIP cover line, what does that stand for?
Highway Safety Improvement Program that is run by the state.
Okay. All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Warren. Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
I just want to provide a bit of information. So I think one of the things, Councilman Canale, I thought you were going a direction on the speed hump program. You'll recall it was budget year 2020, FY21. We only had a couple $100,000 in there. With this council, we actually raised it to 1.7. And the thought there was we looked at all of the potential projects that we had ready to construct, the ones that were next, and we put 1.7 as the opportunity to construct everything that we knew and give us some room to do some other ones and bring them in. So that's how we got to 1.7, which was a substantial increase over where we were. We also agree with you. We heard council loud and clear. I want to go back to what Chief Ford said at her opening. When we did the public safety referendum, one of the uses of those funds are for right-of-way maintenance. And clearly, one of the key things that this council has connected is that making sure our traffic signals are up to speed is important. And so with funding that was allocated and appropriated from this council last year and the year before in street maintenance, we aggregated $12 million of traffic signal installations, which means instead of Manny being able to do 2 next year, he's going to do 28 intersections. So we already have that funding allocated. That's why we're $1 million here. So I'm not sure if we could do physically more than 28 next year, but we heard loud and clear that we need to continue to do that and accelerate our pace of doing it. And then Accelerate Memphis also has funding for those small area plans and traffic signals are some of those. So, and as you know, we put about $75 million into Accelerate Memphis for those kinds of intersection improvements.
Is that capacity for what you could complete?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Canale. Mr. Carlisle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry. Warren.
Good, Doc.
Yep. And we've been joined by Councilman Smiley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Back to the traffic calming devices. I've had a bunch of neighborhoods come to me and say they're having cars speed down their streets. They're not very high volume streets, but they've got a lot of kids playing in the streets, have other things. People that don't know that area will come in and just blow through. And it seems like we've got certain requirements for the number of cars that are on a street before we can put a traffic calming device. Is there a way we can allow neighborhoods to put devices in that don't meet that particular criteria? Because, you know, it doesn't take but one car doing 80 miles an hour to kill 3 kids. So the question is, you know, what do you do? What can we do in the future to allow neighborhoods to self-fund and not give them this requirement that they've got to fake us out by driving up and down the street so they look like they've got enough traffic on their street?
People do that.
Yeah, people do that.
That's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
I think I'll have Mr. Tatum address that.
Blame the fire.
Pass the buck, man. I saw that.
He's gonna blame.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention is, as a part of the program, we do have a variance to the criteria when excessive speeding is an issue. And so in those cases where we collect speed data and it's showing that the 85th percentile speed is 10 miles per hour over the posted speed limit, the volume criteria is ignored completely. So we wouldn't reject a speed hump request solely because there weren't enough vehicles driving down the street.
So I guess the question I'm asking you there is, if you're averaging to see if there's a speed criteria and everybody's doing 25 except for the 2 people that do 80, okay, what do you do? Because that average isn't going to give you something to get a speed bump. You still have the same issue. So do we need to change the criteria as a council to allow something like that to go forward? So that's the question I'm asking.
Yeah, so that 85th percentile speed that I was speaking of is basically the speed at which 85% of drivers are driving at or below. So essentially the only thing that's not captured in there is that top 15% that may be just doing some crazy excessive speeding. The criteria that we have has been fairly solid through the life of the program. There's not many situations that at least I can think of to where we had a true speeding issue and the criteria was just, completely insufficient to make sure we cover that request.
I understand what you're saying. I'm not sure that that's still getting to the problem where you've got intermittent, people being bad. So I'll yield, and because Councilman Carlisle looks like he has something to say. Okay.
Going to
Councilman Carlisle.
Thank you, Chair. So I think, Doc, what I hear Doc saying, and I know we've dealt with this and I've seen it and I've laughed a couple times, is Joe Public basically saying, you're not doing your job, I'll take care of it, and I'm going to drill my own speed humps into the road, which is somewhat problematic. But he's not wrong. Like Frank, Doc, and I, and Ford, Canale all represent Cordova, and that's an area that's like intense, right? That's why we've launched this comprehensive study. And whether it's funding, and what I will say too is and I know I'm talking to the engineers, so you understand this. As you start to throat and digest traffic from other feeder streets, it starts to, the neighborhood starts to learn, and some people it's not a problem, they don't mind moseying, but then all of a sudden, I live on a street that doesn't have any speed humps and every street around me does, so now I'm the speedway. And I know that the fire department has a lot to say about where those go once we start putting in a lot, but fire trucks and heavy equipment can handle the smaller speed bumps that would stop an 80-mile-an-hour Charger or Challenger. And so I think where Jeff is going with this, and honestly, I don't know that we'd be careful because I don't know that we can direct you to do anything, but what I would like for us to do, and I think, again, Jeff, I'm not trying to speak for you, so correct me if I'm wrong here, is we would like to see the engineering department in short order, don't be engineers and take 2 years on me now, figure out a way for us to have a pilot program where certain HOAs or neighborhoods could apply for a temporary, under their own dollar if they want to do it. If the council wants to fund something, we can talk about it. But ultimately, something that allows them a temporary or 6-month, 12-month trial or ability to put in those smaller speed humps that we have going down Front Street. If we have that now, then I think we need to communicate that, because I think that's what Jeff. Yeah, go ahead, if the chair doesn't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that if you look at the success we've had on Front Street with those smaller speed bumps, they made a huge difference in slowing down traffic and people that were going crazy through there. We've only had one major wreck that I know of at Front Street. So, I mean, that's the type of thing I was talking about, and that's something that I think neighborhoods might be able to raise money for to put in. How much does 4 of those cost, Manny?
So we bought about 1,000 of those. That roughly is about $200 a piece is what it ends up boiling down to be. And as Randy indicated, we do have that program as well. So that is an active program that we're administering now. So if we get a request for an emergency or temporary speed hump, and we'll evaluate those and install those.
So we tag team this. So to that point, I mean, I guess if you could help us get the word out. I know the administrative, getting the word out broadly may create a bit of an administrative nightmare, kind of like the regular speed hump program has become. But that's the number one thing that I get, which is, hey, we've either applied and got denied, or hey, we're not sure we're going to qualify. But and a lot of neighborhoods they're torn on, like they don't know that they actually want the big synthetic humps because that 25-mile-an-hour sign is a lie. I think it's like a slow 10 and a rollover. But if there's some way for us to kind of get the word out, especially in areas that we see ourselves that we know perhaps that wouldn't work. The other thing that's out there that I think Randall has done that's really interesting is, starting to put temporary, but starting to put up where you clocks your speed or speed buddy. Just there are a lot of temporary things, and I guess, and I know we need to move on. So let me do this. We got a full agenda coming up on the 10th. If the 24th we could do a little engineering roundtable where we can talk, and because I don't know as much as I'd like to know about like the terms traffic calming versus traffic. What do we have? We have traffic calming and traffic safety, and we've got, and I know it's evolved, right? Like we've got digestion. So I'd really like for you guys to come and maybe just give us a crash course in like basic traffic engineering and the things and the options that are on the table, because I get asked those questions and I can't intelligibly talk about it. And then on top of that, the programs that exist today and how citizens can access them. And if it is a funding matter, like we respect that the mayor and the administration is bringing their budget, but ultimately it's up to this body to determine what our priorities are, and we've got to meet in the middle somewhere. They may align at the end of the conversation, but I'd certainly like to know, like Doc and I think other council members are, where we are on that. Doc, that sounds, yeah.
The last thing I was going to say is one of the things everyone's asking us to do is to stop these really fast cars on our streets. And, this is one way we can do that, because we're not going to chase them into somebody. So we're not, that's a logical understanding, that we can't chase them. That makes more danger. But if we can actually slow them down in a number of areas, that makes more sense to me. So that's why I'm bringing this forward, because this is something I think we all have been hearing about, people being upset with how fast people are driving. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Last thing, will you send us a map identifying is it 28 intersections? 28 signalizations, modernization. I'd like to know. I'm just curious to know where those are. I will say I'm with Canal. From a visual aesthetic standpoint, it's great, and even more so is in these high wind storms. Like that is a game changer versus all those wires just hanging across. And also, don't let MLGW hang anything on your brand new pretty poles. This is killing me.
Mr. McGowan, did you want to add anything?
No, I just appreciate it. We share the same sense, and that's one of the reasons. I just want to be clear, those speed humps that I know they refer on Front Street, but we have them everywhere in the city.
Yeah.
And we did a pretty good job, I think, early on. We just said, just do it, man. I know it doesn't make engineering sense, but put them down to stop the donuts and some of the drag racing. And we did that, and we heard there was a lot of quiet after that. Now I think the speeding thing is of concern. So Manny does have capacity. We have capability. We just need to know where to put them. Those speed humps, just to be clear, will not be there forever. They're not really manufactured to be on a main street every day, but they were a short-term pandemic-driven. It was a solution we had, but we still have some capability, and it's proven to work. So we're happy to work with you to figure out how to make some things like that happen.
And I echo that, Chief. I mean, I do. And
yes, you recognize Mr.
I never yielded the floor.
But I recognize Mr. McGowan, so that did yield the floor. But you recognize.
We're in committee. I don't care. I mean.
We're going to exercise some protocol here, Mr. Carlisle. Okay, continue. How you doing there?
This is why we never get anything done.
Chairman Jones.
Yeah, I got you, Ms. Logan.
I echo that, just because that was one of the biggest things is it happened so quickly, and I don't want to interfere with the fact that engineering is a very math-driven, data-driven thing that has a lot of liability if we make a mistake, and I recognize and understand that. But at some point, people see the quick response of government down in downtown, And their question to us is always, well, why can't we get that in my neighborhood? You don't care about us equally. And so this will demonstrate to them that the council does care, the administration does care, and it's super, it's very helpful. So thank you. I yield the floor.
Councilwoman Logan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation, Director Bellini. I also wanted to discuss or ask about the traffic calming. And I know in neighborhoods in Cordova and Raleigh, there are older neighborhoods that have streets that are very narrow. And the streets are very narrow. The neighborhoods, they have been told they can't get them. So I know you all came last year or the year before and did a presentation on all of the different types of traffic calming measures. And so we did mention about rumble strips and some other things that are possibilities. So when you come back to committee to do that presentation, if you could update us on any new traffic calming measures that could work in neighborhoods that have narrow streets and or neighborhoods that are next to schools that are used as pass-throughs for the traffic that's going very fast. So I would greatly appreciate you all adding that into the conversation, the options for those neighborhoods.
Yes, ma'am.
That's
Yeah,
all.
we'll certainly do that, and I'll present that as part of the committee.
Was that it, Councilwoman?
Yes, thank you, Chair. You're back.
Okay, thank you. Any other colleagues want to be recognized on this item? No, well, I had a couple of questions about it. My question is, I know this is under the HSIP, and I noticed here these projects often include intersection and rail crossing improvements. I'm thinking about a lot of them are along southern, sort of the western part. I've noticed that some we've limited them to one way. So I think it might be perhaps Kerr and Southern. So I've noticed that some railroad intersections, you're only able to exit, you can't enter. Is that a decision that's made by us? Is that a decision that's made by the railroad? How is that determined?
Yeah, so that particular location that you're speaking of was actually part of a study that was done several years ago for a quiet zone. That quiet zone was administered through the railroad. We had to meet certain warrants as part of their determination whether a quiet zone would be applicable in that particular stretch of Southern. Eventually, what the negotiated item that came out of that included changing some of those streets from what used to be a two-way to just a one-way direction. So part of that process included that. Hence, in order for us to get the quiet zone, that's what we needed to do to make that happen.
Okay. And then if we go with what I would like to, though, before we change the Speed Hub program, I'd like to see a report, because one of the issues that you may recall when I first got on the council was the inequitable distribution of resources, and this being one of the main ones. So before, I would just like an updated report to see how we've done in the 6-7 years that I've been on the council, and see have we improved those particular numbers. So was a motion made on this? Okay, has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of this item, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That item passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have parks. Let's stay ahead of schedule.
Park just needs to fix. I went to Raleigh Community Center and it was terrible.
You mean?
We need to put money over there. The basketball course is just, the roads are falling apart. Rims are broken. I'm just gonna tell you what I got a problem with. I think I had to fix the basketball court at Raleigh Community Center outside. The backboard is broken. I just saw it yesterday. Okay. Well, election day. What was the third? Election day? Yeah. Is it blurred together? Yeah.
Thank y'all for having us to hear. We actually have this.
And the public knows that you are whom?
The public knows after I say that Nick Walker, Parks Director, City of Memphis, 2599 Avery. Thank y'all for having us. We'll start with the regular CIP request from Memphis Parks. And so, as you can see, the total allotment is $13 million. And then we set the same slide again. The first request is for the beginning work on the design, demolition, and construction of a new Lester Community Center. Because of the significant undertaking of the cost for this, it was determined to budget this over 2 fiscal years, well, 3 fiscal years, including FF&E and FY25. The hope here is that, truthfully, the city needs more indoor pools and we need more amenities in the core of the city. And this would allow us to do both while also at the same time replacing the next community center in the line in terms of need. The next is some lovely pictures of some deferred maintenance at that building. I think anyone who's been in there's 2 universal truths that you'll find about the Lester Community Center. It is incredibly well used, and it is also in incredible need of replacement. The cover line, this is essentially, it is what it says it is. It is what we use to do repairs that fall outside of the scope of major mod. It also allows us to do things like repaving of playground surfaces, repaving of parking lots, and replacing the site furnishings, and installation of signage, which is actually a big push right now to update and standardize our signage. And the picture there will show you before and after. So even a playground surface that has been done relatively recently, it gets worn out in the spots where feet drag. So at the end of the slide and underneath the swings. Lichterman Nature Major Maintenance is the continuation of a project to essentially restore the Lichterman Nature Center out on Quince. A large part of the study has already been done to address the concerns, and this is the beginning of the funding of the actual work to restore the trail system that is elevated above the water out at Lichterman. And there's a pretty picture of what it'll look like when it's all said and done at the end of this process. The next project is another major project, which will be the reconstruction of the Ottoman golf course. As we find ourselves in a resurgence of golf in the city of Memphis, this is the next one up. So we should be finished with Pine Hill and playing this fall, and the hope would be that with council's funding, we would begin construction at Ottoman this fall. Again, another pretty picture of it. This is the course layout from Bill Bergen. The design has already been finished using FY22 CIP funds. The next, again, it works out well when we're able to make our commitments to outside partners over a long period of time. And this is a continuation of the work on the Wolf River Greenway. I can go into detail with you on which phases and all that fun stuff, but what I will tell you is essentially the city has an obligation to finish out the Wolf River Greenway in partnership with the Wolf River Conservancy. And then the reason that and I do appreciate Chief asked me, does this go on forever? But the truth of it is, this is to build the spine system that goes from Germantown all the way down to the river. Once that is complete, it'll need to be connected to the neighborhoods so that folks have easy access to it, off-street access to the Greenway, not just folks that live near it. And then, pretty picture of the pedestrian bridge over the railroad. And then, man, I'm sorry, guys, I have a lot of these, I apologize. The next is the tennis major maintenance, which we began at the beginning of the Strickland administration to go through and resurface all of the outdoor tennis courts in the city of Memphis. And so this will provide resurfacing of 4 outdoor courts at Glenview and Burt Ferguson Park. And then the picture shows you what it looks like after resurfacing. And then the final request, as a part of our normal CIP process, is the contractually obligated funding for capital repairs at the zoo, also known as zoo major maintenance. And again, if there are specific questions about what their request is this year, let us know, and we'd be happy to share that with you. So do you want to go through the next set, or do we want to
Let's
questions
see,
on
we
this?
want to entertain
Sure.
questions. Councilman Warren.
I have a few questions.
Yes, sir.
One, when we do the Lester replacement, are we going to keep the current facility open and
Yes, sir.
build a place somewhere nearby
We're gonna try this, not nearby, where the basketball courts are.
where the basketball courts
Yeah.
are right now?
And so what we would do is essentially swap the two properties. That would allow us to,
Continue.
again, given the utilization of that center, continue functioning there until such time that we'd be able to replace the basketball courts with the demolition of the existing center.
Yeah, I was there for the, Junior League event, Saturday a few weeks ago, and the people running that center are just doing a bang-up job.
Yeah, Walter and his team
I
are
mean,
doing a
he's
great job.
impressive. The other question I had to do with the Lichterman Nature Center. Do they have a free day like the zoo has a free day? Because I didn't realize that they charge when people went in there. It looks like.
Knowing the type of programming that Mosh does, I would be surprised if they don't, but I can get you an answer.
Find
We'll
out on
certainly
that,
promote
because
it if they do.
if not, it might be something that we can encourage or figure out how we fund.
Yes, sir.
If we need to. And I guess the last thing I wanted to say is, I don't know if anybody's been on that newest section of the Wolf River Greenway that goes from the Green Line out to Germantown. It is absolutely beautiful, gorgeous, amazing flowers. It's just an incredible bike ride. I just stumbled across it last weekend, and if we have that going all the way through, that is going to be a tourist attraction. That will be a draw that will bring people here to ride bikes and into that cycling industry that potentially could open up when we go through Fraser and through Raleigh, ways that we can get extra employment opportunities and business opportunities. That's all I had to say. Thank
We
you.
actually welcome all of y'all on May 17th. We'll be doing a ribbon cutting for that phase, and we would welcome all of y'all to come out for that. We'll send you an invite.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilwoman Johnson and then Canale.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. You mentioned, how you doing, Mr. Walker? You mentioned that Pine Hill was almost completed. Did I hear you say that? How much was the Pine Hill project?
Almost identical to this. It was about $9 million all in.
About $9 million?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is that what we actually, I'm trying to figure out, what's your projection online?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, amazingly. I will say that the combination of golf course architect and construction firm that we hired have done an incredible job. And also it's a testament to hiring an outside project manager. I will tell you, there's been some teeth gnashing and, all the normal value engineering that goes on, but it has stayed within scope.
Okay. And that gets me to, I guess, my other question. When we said Lester Center is going to cost $15 million, how did you make that projection?
We made that projection in talking with a couple of architects that we've worked with on other projects, and essentially put in the square footage, the scope, what demolition would cost, and the huge variables, which are going to be a tournament-sized basketball gym, because that's desperately needed in that neighborhood, and an indoor pool, which would be our fifth in the city. And so those are the reasons that it is roughly $4 to $5 million more expensive than the Geisman Center that we're working on now.
And you will bid this out?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, completely, yeah.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Canale.
Thank you, Chairman. Real quick, did the county give any to the Greenway?
The county has sections of the Greenway, and so anything that's under county control, they did contribute to. I can get Keith to give you specifics on that, but anything that wasn't under our project management, I didn't get dollar figures on, but I can get that information to you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions on it, then? Ms. Walker, 1 year does not a trend make, and so I would, I'm not going to sit here and rely upon my memory.
Yeah.
But I would ask that prior to the next meeting, if you could report back to us, just by my calculations here, of this $13 million, 11.375 is in Super District 9. So I'm not going to say, we need more without looking at what we did the previous year and the previous year. So I would just ask that you bring back to us and.
No, I got you.
Okay, if you can bring that back to us, then I
Happy
don't
to.
have any issue. Thank you.
Councilman,
Yes.
we can bring that back for all the CIP, because we keep
Okay.
track District 8 versus District 9 for all CIP, so we're happy to provide that overall context.
Thank you. I appreciate it. May I have a motion on this item, please?
Second.
Okay, has been moved and seconded. You got those? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
That item passes. Thank you, Mr. Walker. Great presentation. Oh, what?
I got one more for you.
Yep.
One more part.
Yes.
sir.
Okay, special, we call
It's
this
like
special stuff.
Apple. One more thing.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So this is again, Nick Walker, Director of Memphis Parks, City of Memphis, 2599 Avery. Yeah, I think you guys have probably already had conversations about this. So you know the source of the funding on this, but let me tell you about the project specifically. The first, and I will admit, I have some culpability in calling it an outdoor adventure park. When truthfully, what we're talking about is outdoor recreation space. And so using these funds to continue on the work that we have already done in the transformation of the park in Fraser would allow us to prioritize balancing a desire to make it an outdoor recreation space with the needs that the community has told us over and over again they'd like to see. And so we would start with a playground and a pavilion, which is a huge ask of that neighborhood because really the closest one to it is going to be Georgian Hills. And then following up on, and if nobody's been out there, you really do owe it to yourself to go out there and look at the work that Mid-South Trails has done building a mountain bike trail around the outside of the property. It's heavily utilized, even though we only allow them to use it on the weekends right now. And so continuing on that theme and putting in a bicycle pump track, I think will create a safe space. If you look at any of the skate parks that we have right now, so either Toby or Raleigh Springs Mall, they're incredibly heavily utilized. And so by creating this space up in Fraser, we're going to create more activation on the site and also drive to make it a safe place for families to go. So that's the idea behind it. Again, sorry for the name. There is no theme park that is going into Fraser. Yet. I mean, who knows?
Disney's
Let's give it time. Okay, so the next project on there is essentially you guys have, and gals, have done this once before, which is looking at council district-specific projects with roughly $200,000 per council person to go toward either parks or library or neighborhood projects. And again, what we will do as parks, should this be funded, is provide you a list of costing for individual items, but then also projects in the $50,000 to $100,000 range, which would be impactful to either the centers or the parks in your specific districts. And so one of the big things, again, I stressed it when we talked about the cover line, but if you'll flip to the next slide there, is going to be signage. With the part of the rebrand, what we're really trying to do, and I think this will be of huge benefit to anyone that's seen this happen before, is signs like this, which would be a large marquee sign, making it easy to identify the parks. On the side, kind of below the logo, you can't see it in this rendering, but there'd be a QR code where if you're pulling up to it, you hit it with your phone, it tells you on the Memphis Parks website what things are there. It also tells you how to rent the pavilion, or how to rent out the outdoor pool. So that is our hope, is that, once again, if you choose to fund this initiative, that would be one of the things that we would suggest for your council districts. And then lastly is building on the craze of splash pads. Truthfully, I'll be honest with you, when I became the Deputy Parks Director 3 years ago, there was some excitement around splash pads. It is well beyond excitement at this point. And so the more of these things we can build, and also they're great for two reasons. One, it is a gateway into water and water safety, getting kids comfortable with water. And two, the operational cost is incredibly lower than an outdoor pool. And the season is slightly longer. So it's a win-win-win. And we live in Memphis. We live in Memphis. Yeah, and it's incredibly hot. I mean, they're fun. I mean, I struggle to find a reason other than the fact that we're going to have to figure out the recirculating thing. I struggle to find any sort of reason why we shouldn't continue to build more of these. So I'm glad to see that this was prioritized by the administration. And then fun pictures. So this is the design for the Hollywood. Oh, never mind. That's bad. The Hollywood one was on top, and more of a generic manufacturer one was on bottom. And that one's already funded, the one on top, so. And that is all I have.
Colleagues, questions? Councilman Warren?
On that proposed $200,000 per council member, can we use that for programming, or is that only for CIP? This is gonna be for something we build, is that correct?
Yep.
CIP.
You gotta be capital, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Good. 1.2 million, 1 second, 1.2 million.
Yes, sir.
How many splash pads have we talked about?
That's one. I mean, I wish they weren't incredibly expensive, but they are. And that's to build in a recirculating system and probably put in some benches and trash cans to support folks while they're out there in a shade structure.
Okay. Somebody entertain a motion? Okay, okay.
I just want to piggyback on that.
Okay, has been moved by Covett, seconded by Warren. Councilman Carlisle.
Sorry, thank you. I get that. That's kind of disheartening. Is there any way that we could, Children's Museum obviously received received large private donations to that. Is there any way to unlock or find a way to find grants for things like that in and around the country, like Knight Foundation or Kresge?
Yeah.
I mean, there is such a need here, and sorry, go ahead.
No. The good news is, I think we all know it. It exists down in Whitehaven, Councilwoman Robinson's favorite park. I'm making assumptions there, but I'm going to assume your favorite park, David Carnes. That was completely provided by Blue Cross Blue Shield. So I would continue to say that anytime we advocate for a Healthy Places Park or any grant funded, that a splash pad be a huge part of that.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any way you could, we all know kind of who the players are, but I don't know, we're not in those conversations. They typically come to the administration first. And so I guess my point is, there's any way, or there's an opportunity there, or we need to sit down with Cato or Kevin or whatever that is, and then we need to find some matching dollars. I would love to build all three. I get $1.2 million is a lot of money for that, but I get it. So if there's just anything that we can do privately or please let us know, because you're absolutely right. They're a huge resource for people, and they're at top of the list, especially in the summertime.
Will do.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded on this item. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, we are ahead of schedule, so if anybody wanted to take a break, we were slated to begin at 5:05. City Council. We have, Public Works, yes, you do. Public Works, Sewer, and Storm. Mr. Connect, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Chairman and council members. Robert Connect, Public Works Director. You want to start off with the general fund presentation? General fund CIP, I'm sorry. Okay. So the first slide then, if you see that the total request for FY23 is $53,700,000. Of that, $23.7 million would be general obligation bonds. The remainder will be either $20 million for federal and state, and then there's a $10 million transfer from other local, which we can explain when we get to that slide. The first slide then will be asphalt paving cover line. As the mayor alluded to, we have increased the budget from $19.5 million to $20 million for this year. This is a very important aspect of city government. As you know, we have 6,714.5 lane miles. We decreased our lane miles when we de-annexed some areas. It was 6,818. We plan to fund about 190 lane miles of repaving with this budget. There is a associated list that came along with this that kind of shows you all the planned paving that will happen in the year. With this funding, it came along as an addendum. If you don't have it, let me know. We can provide those. And an overview of how that we allocate funding to kind of demonstrate, because each council district has different levels of lane miles. So we try to allocate based on the percentage, and that percentage of lane miles we pay based on the percentage of lane miles in that district is very close, which is important. The next slide, replace sidewalks cover line. We have about 3,400 miles of sidewalks. They're mostly privately owned, privately maintained. Through these programs, with this funding, it's a cover line. We fund paving of city-owned, city lots, city property sidewalks, and then as needed, we then may have to take appropriate action based on an ordinance violation for a private property owner. So that funds that program. The next slide, please. ADA curb ramp cover line. We have roughly 29, I think Doug mentioned this, 29,650 ADA curb ramps in the city of Memphis. They're not all up to the ADA standard. Every year we do a certain amount. With this funding, we're going to do about 750 to 800 curb ramps. Pricing has been increasing over the last couple of years because of construction costs and manpower costs. So we aren't getting as far along as we would like. So we're seeing like a 9-year potential still continuation to finalize all of those curb ramps throughout the city. So this $1 million, again, is a cover line for that program. And again, a continuation because we have to kind of follow the guidelines. This was under consent decree previously, years ago. We came out of consent decree because we were complying with the requirements under the federal lawsuit. The next one, please. Bridge repair cover line. We have 396 total bridges. This will fund 3 active bridge repair contracts, Holmes and Weaver, South Parkway east of 3rd, and then, Humphreys Ramp to Walnut Grove. So the $800,000 goes towards keeping up with our bridge system. We have to rate our bridges. We're on a 2-year cycle under state. The state actually monitors and helps kind of govern all bridges in the state of Tennessee, so that each one of those bridges are rated, and we have to keep up with that. And obviously, any bridge that gets a poor rating gets priority. The next one, please. Channel Avenue repaving. This is a special project involving, we also have Harbor, but this is down on President's Island. Industrial areas down there have heavily utilized roads. They need special kind of repaving project just for those because of the industrial loading. So this is an 80-20 federally funded, 80% federal, 20% local match project. So you'll see this allocation is the geo-bonded portion of it that kind of gets us going as we then hope to achieve with the next TIP cycle, the funding that will be allocated for that to cover the remainder of it, the federal portion of it, the federal state portion. The next slide, please. Harbor docks. The mayor mentioned this in his presentation. We are funding several key programs along the riverfront that really focus on both the Beale Street Landing Dock expansion, the creation of a dedicated, more resilient, strategically placed location at Greenbelt Park, and then some other improvements to serve Memphis riverboats relocation from where to have them a dedicated facility in the Wolf River Harbor area. So all of these are great projects. They have great benefit to the city. We can go into greater detail with questions on that, but this, as you can see, is heavily leverage from the state, $20 million, and then the $10 million from the local other revenue that we're going to allocate to this for the $30 million total. And there may be some other funding we potentially hope to receive as we have requesting other funding opportunities and seeking as many other opportunities to help increase the leveraging of federal funds that may be available as well. And then the last one is our carry forward. This is a change. We did modify this. We did learn that there was an oversight. One project shouldn't have been on here and another should have been. So we did tweak this and make an adjustment on this. So Elvis Presley Boulevard was missing. There was another project. As Councilwoman Robinson knows, Elvis Presley Boulevard is a big commitment from the city's perspective. We have a lot of construction planned out there over multiple years. So this part of that is forward as well. These are most of these are 80-20. These are federally matched projects, except for Malone Homes to Shelby Drive, which right now is 100% local. So these funds obviously continue these projects. I mentioned Channel. We're funding at a project, but we also have a continuation. Harbor Avenue is again a continuation of a repaving down to President's Island. And with that, I will take any questions for the general fund CIP for Public Works.
Colleagues, any questions? Councilman Warren, and then Councilman Warren, then Johnson.
It's on the Channel Avenue paving. I noticed that we just got 1.4 million this year, and we don't have anything for the years afterwards. So we were going to have the project done this year.
No, sir. We're leveraging funds. We're actually going to be getting funding from the state through the next TIP cycle. This is the Transportation Infrastructure Improvement Plan that the state will allocate. So for this, we're adding we had 172,000 from last year. We're adding to it, as you can see, roughly $1.4 million. The rest will be federal grant funds to make that whole project whole.
So we will not be putting in our funds in 2024, 25, or 26, or 27?
No, this should be all the funds we hope to have to allocate.
That was my question. Thank you.
Councilwoman Johnson.
Chair, my question is very similar to Dr. Warren's, so it's been answered. Trying to understand, I guess, a collaboration with everybody's working together. Not quite sure where the funds were coming from. Same way with the harbor, being that seems to be state and federal property as well. Everybody's needing to merge together. But thank you for the explanation. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Connect, I'm looking at the replace sidewalks cover line. Just a general question. How often do we assess property owners?
How often do we actually place a lien on them for that? Let's see, actually. Now, we have a grant program and we have a sidewalk assistance program, and then we have the lien program. So according to this report in 2022, we had a total notices sent of 653. The owners repaired 76. We had 65 grant applications. We approved 25. And the rest are waiting legal procedures, means they're in court, decided in the court, 512 of those. So we have the lien repairs. We did 21 judgments as of this last report. Average cost of $3,800. Total $79,800 in liens placed.
And so when we look at our grant program, how much is allocated to that and how much did we spend?
The grants will cover up to $3,000. Manny help me with that one. Is it up to $3,000? We had 25 grants approved at average of $3,000 for $75,000 total.
Okay.
It comes out of the same pool of funds.
Okay.
So this $500,000 allocation here would be used towards that effort as well.
Okay. Yes, Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Is it possible for you to come back and do a presentation on those sidewalks? Because that seems to me, I understand why you may have assessed some people, but how do you make the determination when to assess some and not to assess others? And that's the same way when I deal with people picking up the tree limbs. Mm-hmm. Some people get assessed, some don't get assessed. So I sure like to hope we can come up with some plan that's equitable for everyone in this situation. And my second question is, you're talking about the $200,000. Could we use that money in order to correct sidewalks in our districts?
Under the ordinance, sidewalks are private property. So they are required to be assessed based on the condition. We are complaint driven. So whenever we get a complaint, we have to go out and to assess the condition. An inspector goes out, they cite the owner. The owner then has time to correct. And then if the owners, they can also make them aware.
Let's stop that. Don't you go there. Because there's too many times that happens and nothing happens, or people call up and some people get assessed and some don't. I mean, I understand that's a dilemma. Each situation is different, so please. My only question was, but you said it's private property, so we can't use the 200,000.
Well, you could increase the grant funding and make a change to the grant program if we wanted to, Councilman.
Well, could we use the funds, since you said it was supposed to be for capital improvement?
Yes, so we tried to mirror the program that we had before, which is for parks, libraries, and community centers, but there is no restriction if it's capital. If the $500,000 that we have in the sidewalk program is authorized under CIP, if you, Councilwoman Johnson, wanted to say, I would like my $200,000 to be allocated to the sidewalk program, that is an authorized use of those funds.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And then so if we look at the harbor docks, the total cost is $60 million?
No, sir. No, the total cost is estimated roughly $30 million. But we haven't taken bids yet, so we're in the preliminary side of gathering funding based on some early estimates based on engineers' estimates. So there's going to be some flexibility because steel costs, material costs are escalating. So Greenbelt Parkway was roughly $6.5 to $6.8 million for that Greenbelt project. The actual Bill Street Landing Dock expansion is $22 to $24 million based on some estimates, and then there's about $2 million for the Memphis Riverboats relocation.
Okay, the only reason I asked it that way is, as I'm looking at these reports, I'm thinking about this is our CIP ask, but the way that it looks here, I see the state grants, but we're not going to bond for that state grant, are we?
No, sir. So
okay, right.
And to come back
but you see how it's presented here? That's what made me lead to.
Right, to come back
20 plus 30, and then plus our 23 funding, 30 plus 30 is 60, so that's why.
Yeah, no, sir. And there was also, I thought maybe you were going, the initial estimate for all of the projects we want to do on the riverfront was about $60 million. That included the dam, and all the other pieces were about $60 million. This is literally just to fund the repair and expansion of the dock, to build one at Greenbelt Park, and then to move the evening Mississippi riverboat cruises up the line. So it's $10 million of cash from the city, $20 million of cash from the state.
Okay, but you're just presenting it here because we're doing so.
Because it is a capital project.
Okay.
You have to approve that capital expenditure.
Okay. I'm clear on that now. Thank you for that. Those were the questions that I had. Okay. Councilwoman Johnson, yes.
I just want to make sure Mr. Walker knows. I didn't mean to be offensive. I may appear to be early connect. I'm sorry. To be not really offended, I'm didn't. Gosh, forgive me. Sorry about that.
Rose by any other name?
All right, thank you though. I appreciate it. I just said that's a different issue. We've been through that. We'll just work on it. Okay, thank you.
No questions on that, man. I'll entertain a motion for the CIP budget request of the month.
Second.
Okay, as we move to second, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes. Thank you.
Next, sir, I guess we'll do the stormwater budget. Think we got a little indulgence.
Maybe Doug.
AD Doug. Other duties as assigned. All right. Thank you. Are you ready, Chairman?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we are going to go through the Public Works Stormwater Fund budget. So this is a recap. Public Works has 3 different funds that we manage from a capital and operating. So we'll go through this operating side as well. The Stormwater Fund, which is enterprise funded. It's paid for by the fees that everybody pays in their MLGW bill. We'll have a similar discussion about the Sewer Fund, which is also another enterprise fund managed by Public Works. So this is our CIP budget request ask for FY23. First slide. The funding amount for this year is $17.3 million, $17.35 million. Most of that is revenue bonds, and then the rest, there's $350,000 in pay-go. Next slide. Our design cover line, as you can imagine, with our stormwater system, we have to design and make improvements to it. We have to oversee any actions that we required. We have a drainage master plan process that's going on throughout the city. So this will fund projects related to our design, stormwater design system. Next slide, please. Our drainage cover line is a companion to that. This is another one where we make improvements to existing drainage systems. The other one is where you might be installing new. We have a pretty robust system of collection system from the stormwater sewer side that we, I think we mentioned before, about 1,500 miles of improvements. So this would go along with that, and as well as it funding part of our drainage master plan as well. We have several projects underway, a Meissen contract underway for $500,000. And then we have a large list of projects that are going to be funded by our MSQ2. That's an acronym, I'm sorry. Our stormwater program manager is who that represents with All Worlds. And we have a list of projects that we hope to fund with that if there's any interest. Next slide. Our curb and gutter miscellaneous contracts. We have about 3,400 miles of curb and gutter throughout the city. It's about the same as our sidewalks. There's a reason for that. I can explain that if anybody wants to know. But this, we have to replace that because it is a stormwater conveyance. The gutter actually serves as a way to funnel stormwater down the street and into our catch basins. We have 51,000 catch basins in the city of Memphis, but that we can use stormwater funding for that. Whereas the street itself, the asphalt section is then covered the general fund. There's just a differentiation and applicable use of that. You can't use stormwater funds for paving, but you can use it for the conveyance, which the curb and gutter serves. So we do an annual replacement. This is an allocation for cover line, and we do it citywide on a recurring basis based on assessments or conditions that we identify throughout the year. Next slide, please. Flood mitigation cover line. Whenever we need to acquire properties to help us abate flooding, we're being creative. Whenever we have to identify like regional detention or detention basins, that we use funding like this. We did a pilot in Councilman Robinson's area on Santa Clara where we had the numbers of properties abutting the Mississippi state line. We just could not get the Mississippi government to take any appropriate action. The only real recourse was to purchase those properties and do detention there. So this program showed merit. Again, our program manager is going to help us identify these kind of opportunities as we move forward. But you can see that we expect to spend another $250,000 to purchase property in Fletcher Creek for detention basin. So we have outlined another future acquisition that we would like to utilize these funds for. So this is the cover line. So next slide, please. Bridge repair cover line. And when I mentioned in my previous presentation under the general fund, we have to do bridge repair. This covers bridge repair related to stormwater conveyances. So the bridge deck itself, the superstructure that actually where people drive on is one aspect of it, but below that, if there's a stream involved, you have stormwater conveyance that goes under that. And if that bridge is not adequately capable of carrying the flow we need it to, the stormwater flow, the drainage, then we can make a modification to that portion of the bridge and use stormwater funds for that. So again, it says 402 396, but we have several projects, like for example, Humphrey over Sweetbriar Creek, that we can use these funds for. And it's, again, an important aspect of stormwater when we can leverage funds that, to improve the bridge itself to allow more flow, stormwater flow. The next slide is our carry forward slide. And you can see that we have some funding that we're allocating on our cover lines. Flood control is because we have a project to do with our Inslee pump station, which is down in Inslee Bottoms. And then our drainage ST cover line is funding to allocate towards our stormwater program manager. And with that, I'll end my presentation on stormwater, and I'll take any questions.
Colleagues, any questions?
No, sir.
Councilwoman Logan.
Thank you, Chair. Just like to ask which area covers the replacement of fencing around storm drains?
Yes, ma'am. That would be under the operating budget for public works, under stormwater for drain maintenance. They have to replace those the chain link fences above those channels. It's an operating budget.
How would how would you all know to replace them? Is there a schedule? Is there someone checking them? And is a certain amount of money included in the budget every year to take care of those? Because I've seen some in my district that are broken down and need replacing. So I just wanted to know where that's put into the budget each year in terms of maintenance.
So we do assess our channels. We have inspectors who go out, and sometimes it's hard to really assess because of overgrowth, the condition of a chain link fence. The city's not responsible for removing the overgrowth from those chain link fences. That generally falls on the private property side. The trees fall down all the time. So we do request that citizens call 311 and report that to us. The drain maintenance will go out and identify what needs to be done and make the necessary repairs. And it is budgeted for out of that operating budget for drain maintenance under the stormwater operating budget.
Okay, so that's not anywhere in what you just presented. Is that what you're saying? It's in the operating?
No, ma'am.
Okay,
no, ma'am.
So, okay, we'll see that a little bit later, I'm assuming.
Now, if we have to make an improvement or replace existing channel, let's say we have some channels that fail and we have to hire, we do have some rehab work. If let's say there's a large sections of concrete channel lining, the fence is gone, the contractor would do that as part of the replacement of that channel or that improvement. So there might be a situation where these funds would fall into that category. But if it's just a fence down because of a maintenance issue, then that would be operating budget.
Okay, so if you had to replace the fence, that would still be operating?
If it's just a fence, yes, ma'am. Typically, that's
Okay,
operating
thank
budget.
you. All right, thank you. Your picture.
Thank you. Motion to approve. Second, okay, has been moved and seconded to approve the stormwater fund under Public Works for the City of Memphis. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item passes.
I appreciate your appreciation. Yes, sir. The last one for Public Works this evening is the capital improvement budget request for Public Works Sewer Fund. Biosolids and biomass. So this is the exciting stuff. So first slide up, it is for Public Works. For the next slide, please. So just as an overview, our sewer program is a very healthy program, and we have a lot of capital needs. Our system serves 840,000 people because we serve more than Memphis. We serve our customers outside through we call bulk services to municipal contracts. So this funding for this fiscal year is, we, as I think Chief Ford mentioned before, we had originally outlined $148 million. We have reduced it because of some clarification on funding we already had programmed and carry forward. So I can speak to that as we get further into the presentation. But you can see we have $30 million in revenue bonds and then $107 million in capital pay-go. The first slide is our miscellaneous subdivisions outfall cover line. This is often a source of confusion, these next two, some of these slides, so I can explain what we mean by miscellaneous subdivisions outfalls. Whenever a developer may go in and put in a sewer, wants to develop it, they're going to have roads, they're going to have infrastructure, and components of that are going to be the sewer system that will become city's responsibility once it's actually dedicated. So we do help fund those types of projects that will ultimately become city infrastructure, city assets. So there's a developer cost and there's a city cost to that. So this funding goes towards those types of improvements that we would make once a developer approaches the city. One of those, for example, you see FY23 is Parkside Development, which is over there by Shelby Farms. So we can help assist with that, and this is that allocation cover line, and it varies year over year. We allocate it because you never know, a project may come up in the middle of a year. The next slide, please. The next one is our rehab existing system cover line. This funds and repairs rehabilitation of existing portions of our sewer system and collection system. We have 3,200 miles of city sewers that we're responsible for. 2,800 miles are within the city of Memphis. The other are outside of our boundaries, but those are still city assets that we have to maintain. You can see that we're because of that, we have $14.5 million ask, but below you can kind of see what we've allocated for that. Our annual CIPP, our cured in place pipe, $2.5 million. Sewer repair, various locations, $1.3 million. Miscellaneous pipe rehab, that's replacement of existing, not trenchless. That's an open trench, about $3 million. And then again, you'll see some projects that we have on the horizon that we plan to potentially have occur. Bethel Grove, Lamar south of Shelby to Perkins, TDOT I-240 at Airways, and TDOT I-455 Crump and Mud Island, $2 million. You have several projects outlined that we have on that we have planned. The next slide, please. This is a unsewered cover line. So this is the one I mentioned that kind of causes the confusion from the first one. This involves actually bringing our main sewer trunk to an area that may not have sewers. The city's obligated to, within our municipal boundaries, whenever a development may happen and there is no sewer infrastructure nearby, we're going to have to extend the main sewer line to provide that service. So that this is a companion to the subdivision cover line, but this is where we bring sewer services to an area so that it can be developed. We have this is a $2 million potential ask, and then we have a Berry Hill and Grove Road, $1 million potential project on the horizon. The next one. So now we're getting to the nuts and bolts of what we do in sewer. This is our covered anaerobic lagoons. So what is a covered anaerobic lagoon? It is an anaerobic digestion process. We utilize those at our treatment plants in order to further handle wastewater processes without getting into too much color. So yeah, you can imagine that we have lots of different things happening and processes involved. So covering a lagoon is a way to also abate odors. It makes we can collect the biogas. We do lots of different things in order to maximize the opportunities whenever we are making an improvement involving our anaerobic lagoons. So this is a $4 million project, $4 million ask. This project itself is of a larger project of about, if you see, about $46 million. And we can get into all the different funding that's going to go into those and different types of improvements. But down at the South Wastewater Treatment Plant, we have a major undertaking underway specifically there to improve our biosolids in our anaerobic digestion processes. The next slide, please, is our South Plant expansion. We are in the middle of a significant improvement at Maxon, which is our Maxon facility, which is our South Wastewater Treatment Facility. We're roughly going to spend about $300+ million there. We are well underway under construction. Many of you may have been invited or been to the facility. I welcome anybody. I'll gladly give you a tour, and you can see what happens at our facilities. But yeah, we're spending quite a bit of funds. It's in the middle of actual construction. We have several years left. So this project is heavily funded through WIFIA. I think Chief Ford mentioned to you our Water Infrastructure Financing Improvement Act. About $156 million of that funding is coming from that. And then SRF is also funding that. And that's through the state of Tennessee. The State Revolving Fund is that what that SRF acronym stands for. We got $84 million going towards it. So about 80% of this project actually is funded through state and or local programs. And the good news is, and I'll speak to that later, how much the interest rates are. We really are very fortunate in that regard, and I can share that here in a minute. The next slide is for our North Treatment Plant, which is called Maynard Stiles. The treatment facility also has a number of needs. We are not extending it quite as much yet, but I'll explain what we plan to do through this. But we have some current plant modifications, so this funds those improvements for that facility. We're asking for $10 million for that. We estimate $200 million we're going to ultimately have to spend. And obviously, with the bonding capacity, the loans that we're going to go after another WIFIA loan for this. We can only do so much at one time. So this is a planning process for us. And several of these projects you'll see we're increasing, we're building up the funding we need ultimately because they're going to be $200 million, $160 million. Obviously, you don't have that at one time, so you have to plan and program for that over a longer term. So this is for that potential plan that we have to make improvements at the North Treatment Plant. And again, these facilities have been around for almost 50 years, so they need extensive rehabilitation or improvements after a certain amount of time of use. The next slide, please, is our Stiles Wastewater Treatment Facility Biosolids. We talked a little bit about that. This is we're going to need to spend about $160 million to make improvements to that facility to properly remove and dispose of digested biosolids. So there's a lot of work that we're planning to do. We're budgeting for the funding that will ultimately have to be spent in an out year for that. As you can see, we plan to bid this around FY24 and complete this in FY30. Next slide, please. The last one, is our SARP program, our Sewer Assessment Rehabilitation Program. We are under, you heard me mention this before, we're under federal consent decree. In 2012, we were sued by EPA, TDEC, and the Tennessee Clean Water Network and Tennessee Department of Environmental Conservation for not maintaining our sewer system adequately. So we had to enter into a 10-year program. It was estimated to cost the city $250 million initially. That has grown over time for various reasons. So that we are obligated to continue to assess and rehabilitate our collection system. I mentioned that. We have 3,200 miles of sanitary sewer. We spent $350 million of the Plan 250, so you can see, again, that it's cost the city more than originally thought, and there's lots of factors that go into that. The program will not end despite the consent decree terminating potentially next year, because the outcomes of that are still have to be continued, because we're going to have a regulatory compliance component of that. So it is a healthy expenditure program, but there's also a lot of great things and outcomes that have brought us into compliance with the consent decree requirements, and we're ahead of schedule. The last slide kind of goes along with what I mentioned before. You know, we're funding projects that are expensive projects, and we've been allocating money over time to build up the necessary amount of money we'll ultimately have to spend. Some of these are continuations. Some of these are funding projects that we hope to bid in the coming years, as we do have adequate resources that we can leverage other federal funds to help us ultimately meet the project goals and close out the gap of the funding we will need to ultimately bid the project and complete construction. And like an example for WIFIA, as I mentioned, it's $156 million. We got a 1.39% interest rate. That's basically so cheap. And then SRF, we average 0.5% to 0.89% on those loans. So those are basically free money. So whenever we do go, to the degree possible, we do. And ARPA, Chief McGowan mentioned ARPA, we $98.3 million in ARPA funds. There's a 15% match for that. We're going to spend that money anyway, but we're leveraging both the MLGW water infrastructure opportunities and our sewer infrastructure opportunities. Most of that's going to be towards collection system improvements in our collection system to make improvements for growth that we need to make. So our goal there is, obviously, we know we want to grow as a city. We know where we have weaknesses, like in Fletcher Creek, we've had moratoriums. So we've asked builders to put storage systems in. Our goal is, with the improvements we're making, to take that off them, build our own storage systems so that we can then have a strategic growth to meet our Memphis 3.0 plan and our master planning. So with that, I'll take questions.
Councilman Johnson, then Warren.
Thank you so much. It's one of them dirty jobs that someone has to do it right.
Yes, ma'am.
My question is, are we seeking all the assistance in regards to financing these from the state, from the federal government? You know, with the infrastructure costs going up and the funds supposed to be coming down from federal government, will we be able to use any of that money to take care of these expenses?
Yes, ma'am. We are constantly looking for grant opportunities. The IAJA is the most recent bipartisan bill. There's funding opportunities that will be coming that way. SRF, again, those funds constantly are maximized by the state and the federal government. Those are heavily utilized to the degree possible. We just recently got another $16 million in SRF. We continually go to the state because we have such important needs. Again, you can't get better interest rates for those. WIFIA, we're going to go after another WIFIA loan, and we leveraged 1.39% interest, like I said before. So as any time we can find federal opportunities. And then I believe there's going to be another round of ARPA funds. The state had $1.5 billion surplus in ARPA under water and wastewater and stormwater opportunities. They leveraged $1 billion of that towards these opportunities. So Memphis got $98 million, Shelby County got $15 million, Bartlett, Germantown, Lakeland, Millington got some additional funds as well. And then we can all hope that those kind of programs are going to continue, because there is a huge infrastructure need, and those things happen more frequently now.
So are you saying we received it already?
We are, and so the state authorized up to $98.3 million dedicated to Memphis. They created a scorecard system. So as Chief McGowan mentioned, we broke out those funds. So $30 million, roughly $35 million is going to go to MLGW. The rest is going to come to city. Sewer getting a bulk of it, and some other projects. We submit those to the state based on the criteria that they developed, and then we really expect to get all $98 million approved. The only contingency requirement is we have to expend them by 2026. So there's a deadline. So Councilman, I have $1 billion, $1.5 billion in needs. I can spend $90 million in my sleep.
Out of curiosity, why do we give it to Memphis Light, Gas, and Water when we were supposed to raise money to pay for this infrastructure out loud? I'm asking questions, that's all.
I'll answer that. The recent $98 million was exclusively for sewer and drinking water. And so the city of Memphis doesn't have any drinking water needs. So we did the assessment here, worked with the mayor, the president of MLGW, their staff. They had approximately $250 million of drinking water projects. Robert's mentioned how many, $1 billion of sewer projects. So we actually looked project by project, kind of a fair share apportionment. So what could we do? Just a bit of detail on that. Of the 98, we pulled 10 off the top. We put $5 million for lead line replacement. MLGW will do some lead line replacement. We're talking about a program to assist people with lead line replacement. And then we took another $5 million to the aquifer study is nearing its end, and we want to continue that and get it completely done. So we're going to add another $5 million to the aquifer study to make sure we protect that resource. So we had $88 million to split between the two of us. That's, to your question, that's the first round of what we expect to see. So drinking water, it came to the city. MLGW and the city will work cooperatively on that, because those are two critical components for our citizenry.
Okay, where is this $5 million led to assist the citizen? How do we get that assistance to the citizens?
We haven't gotten it yet. That is our projected allocation.
Okay.
Once it's approved, we'll have it, we'll create the program, and it will be much like our other assistance programs. We know that's important to people. MLGW has a plan to do it throughout the system, but we know there's other needs in the community, so.
Okay, just curious about that, and I hope we do get additional funds down soon. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Councilman Warren.
Looking at regionalism and Mississippi and future sewer plans, do we have a backup plan in case somehow we're forced to continue to deal with sewage coming from North Mississippi? And just a basic explanation of where we are as an administration, what we're planning on doing.
So we have a contractual agreement with all of our external partners. Those agreements all have terms. Let's just talk in generalities with regards to how we manage our bulk services, because we don't manage the infrastructure in their systems mostly. We just offer them a bulk sewer rate. So we have contractual agreements that we have to abide by. So those terms are all clearly outlined. So we adhere to those very closely. The Horn Lake matter is under dispute. So I really can't go into any specifics about that. However, that contract had a specific term, just like all of our contracts have terms, and that's the path the city's pursuing with regards to managing those.
So on our term contracts, essentially, the contracts do not obligate us to maintain or renew them in any shape or form, correct?
That's our position, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Robinson.
Dr. Warren asked the question that I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Question on this end, and we've been joined by Chair, Madam Chancellor. Councilwoman Logan, did you have any questions for Mr. Connect on this last item? Or Councilman Ford? Okay. I just want to take this opportunity too to address that issue and commend the administration for this. I was up here, I pulled up, I don't know how many of y'all saw the commercial appeal article, but to think, and I've always talked about how Memphis subsidizes this entire region, but the commercial appeal, and I almost threw this paper away without even looking at it. But the headline was, DeSoto begins to look at Plan B as fight with Memphis over sewer system continues. To the tune, colleagues, in case you missed it, it reads that the alternative to move all the services to the DeSoto County Regional Utility Authority, and they would have to agree to that. It's a freestanding entity, but even that is projected to cost about $230 million. So all of the infrastructure that we're doing, we have to put that ourselves. And so if we're talking, was that a 40-year contract?
Yes, sir.
We're talking about a 40-year contract. Who knows what type of escalators? Probably none. So it was in their best interest to lock in something for the longest period of time that they could, because they generally don't have to share in the cost that we're outlined right here. So look, I take my hat off to the administration for sticking to it. I just hope that it prevails any type of agreement. Hey, if it extends, once it ends, are they going to put a shotgun in our back and say, a shotgun marriage and say, you got to stay married to them? Hopefully not.
You're right. That's where the problem is with, Matt, right? You guys heard me say this is my frustration with the county, particularly our county representatives that share in the suburban municipalities are now team regionalism with Blue Oval and want infrastructure, and they want us to be a team player, but they don't want to fund or look at meaningfully funding regional transit system, right? It's like, where do you think all those employees are coming from? I will make one correction, which frustrates me, and this administration is not responsible for it. Unfortunately, we do have one agreement that is evergreen, and that is with the city of Germantown.
And Bartlett.
Yeah, and where?
Bartlett and Germantown.
Yeah, they're evergreen agreements. So, but the city's doing its best to basically say, if they're evergreen, we're still going to charge the maximum allowable rate.
Exactly, sir.
Cool.
Are we losing money on it?
Well, we do a bulk sewer rate study to determine fair costs, and we do have to ultimately charge them all of our invested costs, like the treatment costs as well. So there are escalations. We renegotiate that rate every 2 years. And so it is taking into consideration our capital costs, our operating costs, and all the treatment costs. So there are multipliers and times that it'll go up. Is it the same rate that citizens pay? No, because it's a bulk rate.
Yeah.
But are we actually
Microphone,
losing
please.
money, or are we breaking even?
Oh, it's break even. You can't make a profit off of it. That would be a violation of state law. But under attorney-client privilege, you could probably get, Chief Sink and I could give you more updates about Horn Lake if you were more interested in what that process is.
I'd like to have that, yeah.
Just to the point, I do understand that it's the same MLGW, they're not entitled to make a profit.
Microphone, please.
It's the same for MLGW. I get that they're not entitled to make a profit, but the argument that I would make to that is the opportunity cost, right? So our ability and our capacity is impacted by the opportunity cost of having to Fletcher Creek. Well, Fletcher Creek's a good example. Our capacity is impacted.
There's a long-term history of what we've had to modify. We changed recently our sewer use ordinance. We modified how we allow sewer taps. We made lots of changes with the sewer development fees. So those things have been modified because of that. And I know that there's a concern about that, but the reason we've done that is because we are selling capacity for the future. And making changes with who will be part of our system is an important aspect of that. As I mentioned, Millington, Lakeland, and Collierville, who are currently discharging to us, are all coming off of our collection system. So at the end of the day, it'll be unincorporated Shelby County, Bartlett, Germantown, and Memphis. That'll be the part of our system. And there's a lot of discussions to be had on all those subjects as well. Bartlett and
I'm with Chairman Jones. I'd love to understand it better.
If I could just say one thing, a nautical term from my days as a sailor. We put the rudder hard over on this thing a few years ago, and the ship is turning rapidly. We are on a completely different course as a city than we were in 2016 to our betterment and to the future of this city. And so we appreciate the strong support of this council. We are unified on this because it's for the betterment of our community.
Indeed.
Need a motion?
Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the capital improvement budget for Public Works Sewer Fund. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item passes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next, excuse me. Next, we have Memphis River Parks Partnership. Good afternoon, sir. You can introduce yourself and begin. Gentlemen. Hit the green button. Well, the button. Yeah, there you go.
Good afternoon. Best time I had all day. Thank you all. We appreciate your patience and time with us today. And this administration has been great to us, and this council has been even better to us. As you look out and you drive down Riverside Drive, you see the amazing work going on in Tomley Park. So Memphis River Parks Partnership is definitely a good steward of the funds that you guys give us, and we are continuing to do so. And in that vein, we make this budget request. We have two projects that we're coming before you for today. One is for the Mud Island parking garage safety repairs, which essentially replaces, and these are all due to safety. One replaces tension joints in all 3 floors and a failed sump pump in the elevator, and just some small cosmetic upgrades. The next one is the Wagner Place parking lot gates. This is Wagner Place. If you've been down Wagner, we've worked with a consultant to work on a long-term strategy for what happens to Wagner. But we at the partnership are constantly getting complaints about the Wagner lot, but also we want to make sure that lot is safe. So this will work with better for parking lot control and access control around it, and minimize the disruption behavior in that park. And the third project is Greenbelt Park, the fence. I know people love this dog park, and it gets constant use. This would upgrade the fence at the dog park and make sure that all the dogs stay contained within the dog park, but also that we keep getting strong usage out of it, and people keep looking at it as an asset along Mud Island. The next one, Mud Island River Parks Terminal Light updates. And this is, if you walk the walk bridge going across from this side to Mud Island, most of the lights are out. This would replace those lights and make sure that, people walk the bridge all day and night and love it. But also people look at it as a beacon to our city as well. So we want to make sure that we have great visibility over there too.
Did you want to cover the last?
Yes. So sorry. In the carry forward fund, the amphitheater $200,000, and the North Gate is $323,000. These projects are projects that are underway. We are either they are in bid process or have been bidded, and then now they're carrying out the work. So we are going to carry forward those funds.
Yes, I'm Mark Davis. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Financial Officer of the partnership. In addition to what Tyree said, you will be seeing at the next meeting the resolutions to appropriate the funds for these two projects. So that's why we're asking for the carry forward. We are in the process of finalizing the plans subject to the final appropriations from the council.
Okay. So, Ms. Johnson wants to be recognized. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. My first question is, are we able to pay for a fence, a gate for Wagner Place in this situation if it's not our property, or who's going to own the gate later?
Right.
What's this?
It belongs to the parking lots belong to the city.
Okay.
So yes, ma'am.
Okay. That'll work.
I have another question. Hey, when we provide the funds, and like the carryover, is it posted any place how these funds are being used or how much is left so that we can go out or the general public can see, well, they still need to spend another $200,000 or, you know, itemize how the funds are being used? I'm just saying for any project. I'm not talking about just this one project. For all these funds we make available, how can the general public keep up if it's possible?
Thank you, Councilwoman. This is part of our budget process, and it becomes part of our adopted budget resolution for CIP. So it is not only just published in the book, the big final book that you get, it's also published on our website. And that's why it's important that the descriptions that are given during the council presentations for you to hear are the descriptions that are posted and placed on top of the projects. Then during the year, we monitor and watch and bring back to you on a quarterly basis how we are expending those funds. And to Mr. Davis's point, when we get to like Q2, I'm calling Art going, we gave you money last year and you still haven't appropriated. Are you going to spend it? What's, you know, how are we doing that? And that's part of our quarterly update with council, ma'am.
Microphone, please.
The details of how the money actually is being spent, is that strictly with you and your department? Because it look like those reports are just general reports as far as dollar-wise. But like, what were these funds actually used for? I mean, if they spent $500,000, what was $100,000 used for? What was $250,000? Is it the only way for the general public to find out is to come to your office, or is it posted someplace?
Today, they can't just go on the website and find out. One of the things that we made a commitment to, we started with Accelerate Memphis, was, you know, there's where are the projects, we can't see them, so we've posted them online. Then we have them geographically displayed. And then the next thing we added was the schedule, so you can track the schedule. The next level would be, you know, that kind of detail. We have a description on there for what the project's supposed to be. Ms. Ford and her team of financial analysts actually run every day the check requests. Against those, what you'll see is typically a standard AIA request for payment, which itemizes, you know, if a contractor's doing work, they itemize all of the things. So for any one project, you'll have hundreds of sheets of documentation for anything, but we have the ability to access if there's a specific question about spending. I agree with you. We'll keep working towards more summary level information that is meaningful to people. Once we got just the list of projects, then the location, now the schedule, the next would be what kind of detail can we provide?
That's good, because believe it or not, people contact me or run into me and say, you just gave them $500,000. You don't know what they did with it. And I said, no. They have to turn in expenses. They have to meet these particular requirements. So I wanted to make sure people listening understood that there is a monitoring process with these funds.
There is. If I could I want to take 1 minute just to explain. One of the things that we've talked about, for these big projects, we have construction committee meetings. And one of the things that we do in the committee is we actually approve the invoices. So all the way down to, if we have a consultant that comes, just to give you the sense of detail that we go into, if a consultant comes in town or a contractor, and part of their work is to stay in a hotel, that's great. Part of the agreement is that their food expenses is taken care of, that's fine. But we look at every invoice and say, no, you didn't strike out you had a couple of beers and dinner. We won't pay for that. We're not paying for your tip that you provided. That's an option you do. So all the way down to that level of detail, or, hey, it seems like you charged us 2 times for these tools. We're only going to pay for it 1 time. So there's a team of people that review all of the invoices to avoid duplication. I'm going to harken back to the convention center. There's a reason that we came in on a $200 million project, $25,000 under cost in the middle of a pandemic, because we had a team watching like a hawk every single expenditure and every invoice that came in and said, we have to rectify this because we have to be good stewards of the city's money. So we can do that, it's just difficult to put on a spreadsheet to show folks.
Okay, I appreciate that, but I just think people need to understand the funds, once they're released, are being monitored, and, they are accountable for their action. And I think, I tell people, we're gonna be audited. Any of these funds can possibly be audited 2 or 3 years down the road, so we definitely want it to be, justified for all expenditures that we use. Thank you. Thank you for the work
I
you
could
do.
add to you as well, as part of our annual state audit, there's a random selection of any kind of accounts payable, whether it's a reimbursement for textbooks or it's a construction program. There is an audit of some of the accounts payable that comes through the city every single year.
Thank you again. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Warren.
Yes, I just was trying to figure out where this Wagner Place parking lot was, and I guess it's the one in front of the riverfront.
It is.
And then it doesn't currently have gates.
It's in front of Waterford.
Oh, in front of Waterford. It doesn't
Plaza.
have gates now, correct? And we're going to put gates there. Okay, that was what I just couldn't figure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on this end? I have a question regarding $125,000 for fencing for the dog park. A lot of fence.
So I can answer that question. That is really for the entire length along Mud Island Drive there, starting at the north end. It's not just for the dog park. There's fencing there that was put in when, many, many years ago. It's the bent iron pipe that keeps cars out of the park proper. So it's a replacement of all of those along the east side of Greenville Park.
Okay.
Not just the dog park.
Gotcha. I would like at some point to see what would be MRPP's plan for Mud Island. Last year I tried to get into the budget, the monorail. We talk about improvements. I see that, Live at the Garden, they have an outstanding lineup. Chicago, the Doobie Brothers, Darius Rucker. But the scenery there still doesn't come close to a concert at Mud Island. But, the fact that we're spending, I would like to see what the plan is, because here we are, another year without it. We've supposedly made some improvements, but if people got to walk over there, it's not going to be utilized. So I would like to see what is the plan. If there's no plan, tell me. We're just going to let it waste away. Tell me that too. Ms. McGowan. But we've allocated a lot of money. Accelerate Memphis is quite ambitious, but many people agree that that's just an asset. I understand it's old. That is just wasting away. So I'll entertain comments from many.
I'll start. We did put about $4 million from Accelerate Memphis into that, and so many of that will be the baseline investments into the amphitheater, make sure everything works, electrical outlets, upgrades to the dressing rooms and some stage materials, and to the areas around there. One of the things you'll note, Councilman, when you walked over there before in the past, some of the roof tiles, which are also the walking path, have disintegrated, and so a lot of those repairs will be made. Much of that $4 million is for the deferred maintenance, just to make the baseline thing work. So those investments are ongoing. These are additive to that, and there are some interest and some activity happening over there that I think MRPV would be happy to report about. There's active interest from external parties to get that thing activated in a way I think we'd all be proud of. So this is a baseline investment for us, just to make sure that we do know that it doesn't disintegrate any further. It doesn't degrade any further.
Fall into the Mississippi, sail down to New Orleans.
Degrade any further, and that we actually have operating, functioning park over there. So Tyree, if you want to add anything else.
It's just one quick remark, Councilman. We share your enthusiasm for playing for Mud Island. As the Chief McGowan said, we field requests all the time of people with interested parties that would be interested in bringing things to Mud Island. We, as MRPP, and Mud Island being a city asset, we not only work with the city on these interests, but we also work in terms of how can we enhance the user experience for what we have right now. Right now, we're focused on enhancing that user experience and finding things that not only allow people to use it in its current state, but also keep it safely operating. We are working on a long-term strategy for Mud Island and with multiple people that have multiple ideas for that, but we welcome the opportunity to sit down with any member of the council and discuss where we are now.
Well, no, what I'm requesting is a public presentation of what, just like you all probably developed one for Tom Lee. And, it may be ambitious, it may be 5 years out, unless things change, I'll be gone in a year. And so you may not have anybody to advocate for it. So, but.
I'll be here.
I hadn't heard any advocacy for it before last year for it, so.
Because, with all due respect, Chairman, because I've been involved since I was on the board of the partnership, there's no reason to spend $5 million to send people to an asset that's not ready to go. And the totality of what it takes to bring Mud Island forward is a daunting, ambitious plan, but you have to have an operator and a partner in doing that. And those partners don't want to be made public until they're prepared to be made public. And if you do that and you force us in, you may diminish any opportunity there.
Well,
and I will add,
but if nothing changes, it'll be 8 years that I've been on this council, and nothing has changed along those lines, and so we could very well be others. Councilman Warren Johnson.
I just wanted to say, based on what we heard from our Parks Director today, splash pad is what you need down there where the lake is. So be looking at that in your development plans. I think that's the way to get people there. Thank you.
Great.
Councilwoman Johnson.
I think that the request is not totally unreasonable. We don't have to provide any names, but you need to have a vision. That's all he's asking for is a vision. If we're going to spend $4 million on the project, then we're going to do it for a reason. I just don't think we're going to spend $4 million just to make it stand up over there and use it for storage space. So you should be able to give some type of direction and let people. He did say he's going to spend $4 million for upkeep, right? Right. So we should have some reason why we're going to spend $4 million. So I think we could come up with a presentation with concepts that how it could be used and go from there. And work. I'll be looking forward to see it as well.
Great. And Councilwoman Johnson, I agree. We can present a short-term plan, which is where we are now with the $4 million, which is crazy. When you think about $4 million, but $4 million in terms of all the deferred maintenance, $4 million is kind of just a short-term fix. And we can have an intermediate plan, which is kind of the interest that we have now, and then a long-term strategy and where we think we can go with that. We'll be glad to make that available to the council and schedule that.
But, as a councilman here, I don't have an idea of what that fiscal note is and what it would require. So an update would provide that information. And I'd rather, for a number of things, I'd rather a presentation be made to council and then council says no, than it just exists out there and we have no idea of what it's going to take to do something. But that's the spirit in my making this request.
We will get that done for the council and get it scheduled.
Okay. Councilman Warren.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the capital improvement budget request for the Memphis River Parks Partnership. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, so before everybody leaves, I was just informed that we have to do another round of councilman lottery. So the situation is, I think the only day, one of the days that they're scheduled to do so, I'll be out of town.
Oh, me too.
I'll show you my ticket. So does. Here we go. With the shiny box.
Due to scheduling conflicts, Councilman Jones is unable to attend Impact.
We just heard.
So my name has been removed, right?
Councilman Jones, Councilman Smiley.
What are the dates here?
The dates are
The The chosen council member must be available on Monday, May 16th, at any time of day. But May 16th is the only day that Councilman Smiley will be available.
You know? All right.
And with that,
You know, I gotta, there's a lot of stuff that you're trying to cover.
No, the chair requests somebody else, Chief Ford, you're gonna pick for us.
Oh, so we just fired last up from Vicky?
okay. Well, I didn't do great the first time.
Just one.
This council member will hate you forever.
You know what, I was gonna say, you're putting me in a very bad.
Yeah, this is.
I see it.
Logan.
Logan, are you there? Rhonda, are you there?
I can't believe it. That doesn't say Logan.
You've been selected.
That doesn't say Logan.
You've been selected. L-O-G-A-N. Wait, let me see. Rhonda, can you see it?
No. Oh, my goodness.
It's one of those things where you didn't have to be present to win.
Wow.
Thank you.
Come on down.
Is there any other business to come before this committee?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, this committee meeting is adjourned. Good night, everybody. Oh, yeah, the Memphis and May Gala.
Does anybody want to go? I won't be able to make it tomorrow. I got.